I just wanted to share more of my iPhone thought experiment outputs, if that's okay. So, if profit wasn't the driving force and Apple didn't prioritize locking you into its ecosystem, planned obsolescence of its products, and forcing upgrades, what would the iPhone have become in a truly free market? This was in response to somebody telling me that if it wasn't for globalism and imperialism, I wouldn't have my iPhone. Correct, I wouldn't have an iPhone. But this is what I might have instead. So, Apple deliberately make it impossible for you to repair your own device. If profit wasn't the priority, it would make more rational sense to decentralize parts production to local economy, and then you as a consumer would be encouraged and enabled to replace parts and build your own spec, which I know a lot of people who use iPhones because of the camera or for creative content, stuff like that, would love to be able to do, but are completely blocked by these patents and monopolies. Your phone should be lasting a decade or longer. Like, planned obsolescence is the reason these phones break down. Imagine you could bespoke your camera, add macro lenses, even like infrared or thermal, like do whatever you want with it. You see these guys on YouTube trying to like weld cameras onto the phones to try and like make bespoke products to get creative. That creativity is completely stifled by Apple's current process. And this would remove this bullshit paywall between like Apple standard phones and then the Pro, where you get that third lens, which is just a paywall. Imagine you could install all the lenses you wanted yourself and just upgrade what you need. Imagine iOS operating systems were open source and there was no forced updates that slowed down your device. You'd have then seamless cross-platform collaboration. None of this Apple versus Android nonsense. You could even add back the audio jack if you're sick of being forced to buy AirPods as well. It's highly plausible that if it wasn't for the billion-dollar exploitative industry that's propped up around the mining of lithium and cobalt for batteries, we would already have steady-state batteries. So, the exploitation of children in the Congo is not a requirement to build an iPhone. It's that it's a very profitable business that people are now invested into. And so upgrading the batteries and moving away from outdated lithium ion is actively thwarted against. They don't want to do that. They like exploiting children. They make a lot of money from that. It's not like this terrible thing that you need to hold in your morality that if you didn't have an iPhone, children wouldn't be exploited. You could have the iPhone without the child exploitation. Somebody's getting rich off the child exploitation, and because they're getting rich off the child exploitation, they're holding back progress on the iPhone. Instead of being designed to die after 2 years, steady-state batteries would last decades. They could have the potential to be charged by kinetic energy in the air or by sunlight. That means you don't charge the phone. It is possible to build devices that run on supercapacitors, if you're smart enough. But they don't want you to. To keep growing creates a lot of waste. Capitalism needs products to be sold and then replaced. We only have to charge our phones so that the batteries die. So then you have to buy a new one. Not because batteries just die. Stop accepting the party line. Science says false. We already have wireless energy transfer. Piezoelectric materials. I'm hearing this word for the first time, but how cool is that? They generate energy from movement. That means you could be charging your Apple Watch with your steps. It could harvest energy from your body heat. It would never need to be plugged in again, ever. And theories suggest that quantum batteries don't degrade at all, which means one device could function for centuries. This would put Apple out of business. Science says infinite energy hack possible. Capitalists say, how can we put a meter on it? Science said it's invisible, it's free for all, it's a gift from the universe. JP Morgan says, pull the funding. Planned obsolescence makes sure that your phone gets slower and weaker over time so that you buy a new one. Self-healing polymers exist. Imagine your phone could repair its own cracked screen. Bioengineered materials could allow phones to reshape themselves and adapt to how you use them. So someone who is disabled could have a tailored phone completely adapted to them and their capabilities, instead of holding it up like the rest of us plebs. Like, even for me, with my tiny fingers, holding this phone is heavy and annoying. What if it molded to the shape of your hand? Imagine that instead of degrading the software and forcing through updates with obscene terms and conditions that enter you into legally binding contracts with Apple just to use the tech. Imagine if instead of that, you had a phone that got faster, grew with you over time. The AI inside it would be able to rewrite its own architecture to optimize the performance of the device based on how you as an individual use it. This is completely tailored technology. Some researchers are even experimenting with biological circuits. This is slightly creepy because it's made from stem cells in a lab, but I don't know if it makes them sentient. That's a different conversation. I'll leave that one to science communicators. But the theory here is that your phone would be part machine and part organic. That would mean it would be able to do things like grow more storage when you run out. Not pay, grow it. The idea that these phones just simply degrade is a con. It's Ponzi scheme behavior! Because if your phone never broke, if it was able to heal its own screen and grow more storage for you, they'd have no business. And then there's the whole organization of governance, power, structure. The capability there of your device being able to stand as a legal identity, but that would eliminate the bureaucratic paper-based systems where your birth cert is traded on the open market. Instead of carrying ID, your phone could carry an encrypted, verifiable identity that you could use anywhere. Instead of corporate banking apps, you could have direct control over your digital currencies without fees and surveillance. But governments and corporations rely on these intermediaries. The banks, the ID agents, the cloud services, they gatekeep the data. Giving you direct access over your own data disrupts the power structure. It is technically possible to decentralize democracy entirely, but then nobody gets rich off it. Imagine your phone was not a glass sandwich waiting to shatter, but was created with materials like flexible ceramics, transparent aluminium. If you've been here since the start, you'll know aluminum. And then all these superfluous extras, Apple Case, Apple Care, Apple fucking... Imagine you're like, instead of being like, oh, do I pay for Apple Care? Oh my God. You could be like, I'm glad I just spent this money on this purchase because this device is going to last. Open source design breaks the stranglehold of the exploitative supply chain. Instead of relying on child labor, phones could be made locally in a decentralized way through ethical manufacturing. Just pay people for their time. And if you need cobalt, pay the Congolese men properly. Stop trying to cause coups and kill children. I can't believe this has to be said. Every day I wake up and I just think, and you can guarantee I'll get at least one straw man in the comments about how technological progress is the result of late stage capitalism.